Good evening, everybody. My name's Craig Woollett. I've got to stay in front of this, this camera. My name's Craig Woollett. For many years, I was what was called a product engineer at Telstra and Siemens, where I was involved with introducing new devices into the network. And when I say devices, it was mainly things like ADSL modems, cable modems, and more recently, some of the tablet phones that Telstra manufactures. So not manufactured, but provided as products, such as the T-Hub, which some of you might have seen, which is an Android fixed phone. So I left Telstra about a year and a half ago and attended Fire Boot Camp. And as a result of that excellent training, I'm now a Scrum Master at CSR, doing some Scrum Fall process, which is an amalgamation of Agile and Waterfall, so it's been quite an experience. So what I want to do tonight, let me just bring up my agenda on my phone, is I want to share some of my experiences, if you will, hacking using virtual machines to produce a test environment on your own laptop, almost like your own virtual cloud. And why we do that, I'll come to shortly. But the story I want to tell tonight is about a developer. He's been given a mobile application which has been outsourced. He has no access to the source code. It currently talks to a REST service in the Hero Cup. Is that how you pronounce it? Hero Cup? The Hero Cup. Yeah, okay. Hero Cup Cloud and Hero Cup. That sounds better. The Hero Cup Cloud. And he wants to migrate that to a much better Microsoft REST service somewhere else. The core of this presentation is I don't have access to the source code here, and I don't want to. I don't want to change it. I want to have the existing application tested so I don't have any surprises. And the question was asked, well, what sort of surprises are you talking about? And I can give two examples. Back in Telstra in about 2003, we had some web pages we were testing for Australian Idol, and one of the links from that page was to Casey Donovan, who at that stage was one of the winners of Australian Idol. So we tested all this with a test build of the website. Then when we went to production, the testers reconfigured, changed some of the configuration. Instead of putting caseydonovan.com.au, they put caseydonovan.com. Now the problem was caseydonovan.com went to a gay Canadian porn site. So I thought it was very funny, but the directors didn't. So I've learned to try to test with the actual production image. And the second example I've seen is when we used to get modems in Telstra, you have a particular URL where the modem would, what we say, inform to get updates and for us to report on configuration, problems with signal to noise ratio, etc., etc. And one time, again, we tested it with a test build. The production build went out to a small lot of friendlies, but the URL was wrong. We lost the ability to actually control those modems. So after that, we said we'll test with production, we'll mock DNS and whatever, so that the actual firmware which went into the device is what we tested, and we would make changes to the test environment accordingly using virtual machines. And what we found doing that was we could actually get an extremely powerful test environment on a laptop, and now, like this laptop here, 32 gig, you can do quite a lot of things with it. So that's sort of the overriding view. But in doing this particular presentation, I also developed some expertise with emulators, and it's amazing what you can do with these emulators and how easy it is to use them. And a lot of what I've found with both people in the Canberra group and people at the Xamarin users group was a lot of them saying, oh, I hate trying to debug or do Android development because it's really hard on the Windows trying to get the phone to work with the USB. It's quite problematic. But when you see me fire up one of these emulators, it's just as easy as anything. And we're going to have a bit of fun. We're even going to have a C++ Android app come out of Visual Studio 2015, and be put into an emulator in about 5 seconds, and you'll be quite amazed what you can do. And also a lot of the tricks I've shown you here, you can do on a physical phone as well. So hopefully there'll be some interest there. Despite the fact that I'm a graduate of the boot camp, I'm more an integrator and a project manager than a developer, so I won't be showing too much code tonight. So don't ask me what link stands for or anything like that, because I might have a few issues with that. So in order to do this little project, I need an emulator. We'll pretend I don't want to use a phone because I've had so much trouble with the USB, so I need an emulator. So the next question is, what is an emulator? And if you, pardon me, and if you think of an emulator versus a simulator, if you ever go to the Genymotion website and all their forums, they get very emotional about the difference between an emulator and a simulator. And if you think of the English, I want to emulate Andrew, my buddy on boot camp. I want to emulate his success. I don't want to simulate his success, because the simulation means I'm trying to copy it and via a different way. And that's fundamentally the difference. An emulator actually has the entire code, if you will. It's actually a copy of what you're emulating. Whereas a simulator, you might be just mocking or using a different type of software to produce an outcome. So in an emulator, and this applies to both the Genymotion emulator, the Xamarin emulator, and the new and quite exciting Microsoft emulator, they all cover this basic design. On the left, can't see the cursor. I have to use the cursor, won't I? Cursor thingy. That's laser. Let's use a laser pen. Laser pen. Oh, that's so cool. I don't normally use slides in my presentations, so this is a bit high tech for me. But going on the left, you have what's called a player application. So the player application is a frame. And within that frame, we actually run the virtual machine. And the virtual machine, in the case of the Xamarin and the Genymotion products, is VirtualBox, the Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine. And what's loaded in there is a virtual machine consisting of the Android open source project, which is compiled under the Intel platform. So the player will show that application, but in addition to just showing the application, you'll see that we have some various controls to inject battery level, so we can simulate low, high battery and be able to see if our application behaves accordingly, like with Outlook. When the battery gets below 10%, it stops polling. So you test issues like that. You can also use the GPS option to make the emulator appear to be somewhere different, which is what I will do for this application. And you can also use the camera to bridge the camera from the laptop into the phone to test camera applications. And what I'll show later, if we have time, is you can also bridge the OTG port, the on-the-go port, and interface to sensors. So hopefully, if we have time, I can turn this laptop into a heart rate monitor, and if anybody's wearing a Garmin monitor, we'll pick it up, but I've got a simulator here on another virtual machine. So I can show you that whilst you might think of a virtual machine or an emulator as being a sick apology for using the real thing, you can do just about everything with an emulator that you can with a phone. And as you'll see, I've got several, oops, I've just garroted myself with the, it's all good. So what you can see, that you can do everything you want with an emulator, and in addition you can have a number of emulators to test different versions of Android, different types of devices, because Android's got this horrible problem of fragmentation. There's literally millions of variants of screen sizes and orientations. And yeah, so you can, and also being a virtual machine, you can do things like snapshots. So you can snapshot before you install a library, run it and test various cases of installation of applications without having to uninstall and do horrible things to route your phone, etc. So I think you'll find this quite, I hope you find this quite interesting, the things you can do. And also what I'm showing tonight is all the free stuff, so it's not a great expense to be able to do this. So if you're a typical .NET person and you either have an iPhone or a Windows phone, this might give you an opportunity just to play a little bit with Android. So what I'll do now is I'll move away from the slideshow, and I will go back to doing some live stuff. So just bear with me for a moment, because as I say, it's having two monitors with PowerPoint requires a PhD to be able to get the other side working. So I'll just shut PowerPoint down because it's evil. That's much better. And I'll just have to configure the displays to be duplicate rather than extended. Yeah, so let me just do that.
You can hit
Windows P. I knew that. That's just good you know that. That's really, I'm really impressed, Raj. Tell the Kogan that. This is, well, Adam's not here, otherwise I get a retrospective about it. Okay, so the first thing is I'll introduce an emulator. So here's the Genymotion emulator here. As you can see, there's the player, and it's running a stock standard ASOP Android open source project image of Android. And that's why it's got such a horrible looking background, because that's what you get if you built one of these machines yourself. It looks like someone's shot a bullet at it. Or it's supposed to be a flower or a fractal flower, but that's standard stuff that comes with the Intel. So the next question is, how do I get stuff onto it? And this is where I think you'll be, I hope you'll be very interested, because it's really simple. So I'll start firstly with Xamarin, and this applies to, I will show it with the new Visual Studio, but I'll start with Xamarin first. But if anybody who doesn't know Xamarin, hasn't seen it? Okay, well, it's just C++, C#, a platform which allows a lot of, oops, that's the wrong one. You don't want to see that one because that's a really boring application. Let me start it up again. Xamarin just allows us to share C# code between a number of mobile platforms. You don't want to see my forms example, it's quite boring. So we go to the Xamarin store. So I think our host had a C# t-shirt, and that's because he ran this application. So I'll just wait for that to come up. And I've lost my frame. So this is the joy of doing a live demo. I've lost my frame on. I'll bring up another one. Recent solutions. I'll use trip expense one. That's a cool one. That's better. I've lost it again. So what I'm doing now, I'm just building the application. Now normally along the side I should have an option to send it to a particular target, but unfortunately I'm new to this GUI, and I have lost that tab. So what I'll do is I'll actually go to the next demo and show you the new Visual Studio 2013, and doing the same sort of thing. So let me just bring that up. Okay, so let me just get my. It's always hard with a touchpad on a Windows box. This is Visual Studio 2015, and the example I have here is one of the cross-platform C++ cross-platform projects for Android. So it's a C++ project which runs on Android, which is pretty cool. So I've just built that. Actually, you can see it's picked it up. You can just see as an aside where it's picked up some emulators there from a previous talk I did. I'll come back to that later. But if I compile this, which I have already, I produce a thing called an APK file, which is the Android package format, which is very similar to the Linux format. It's just a zip file with some scripting, a data partition, and a code partition. Now, if I had physical device, I'd have to install driver, plug in the port and hope that it picks it up, and that's always a problem. In the case of an emulator, no problems at all. All you do is drag it across. It will install, it will transfer. Then it'll install and run, we hope. Please run.
The fun of live demos.
Yeah, fun of live demos. Let's run up here, Jess. I'll try it one more time. I've already installed it before, so I'll cheat. Okay, it doesn't like that for some reason today because it's a live demo. But what you can do is you can drag the APK file across, it will install and then run. So, for instance, you would see that there's the application there, which I did previously. I click on it, and it's an application that cycles through colors once I click, and that's written in C++. But what I wanted to show was it's very simple just to load the application. You just drag the APK file across. Now, what I really should do is reboot the computer, but I don't want to do that because I might stuff something else up. So it does work. It's quite good, and that's a really nice feature that makes it much easier to debug Android applications. You just drag the file across. The same thing happens with the Xamarin emulator, and the same thing almost happens with the Microsoft emulator. When you drag an APK file across to the Microsoft emulator, it will load it into the virtual SD card, and then you'll have to log into it and execute the install command. With the Oracle-based ones, they do it for you automatically, but still it's very, very simple. So I think that's worth the price of admission for a start. So I might just restart this one, and then I'll go on to the next demo. So to restart the emulator, you can see there's all my devices, and you can add a lot more. You can see I've got a 5. I might try using a Lollipop Android number 5, version 5. You can see there I've got quite a few ROMs already. So to access this technology, you just sign up to Genymotion free account, and you can download a number of these ROMs. And so you can see it's slightly different Android. It runs very fast compared to the emulator if you've ever run in Linux, because we're using hardware virtualization. We're not doing a software translation between Intel and ARM, so that does tend to help things a bit. So here's the Lollipop one. So I'll just try this one and allow that. I'll let that run for a while. We might just try this one more time, because this one is, now we've run this freshly, it might be a little bit happier. And it's now, it's actually, and also it's a real machine it's downloading. It's got my, it's got Google Apps on, it's downloading stuff from my account, so hopefully won't be too many happy snaps come down the wire. Andrew, you're laughing, you understand what I'm talking about, you're very sick. So what I'll do, I'll just try this APK file one more time, just to prove to you that I'm sincere in my, and let's see if this one works. Oh good, oh my God, it's going to work. No, it's a different thing, accept that it's something different. Oh, it works. See how I installed it, and it just loaded it, and it works. So at the Xamarin talk, every time something worked, I'd jump up and down. I got quite a reputation in the meetup world for jumping up, down, making a noise when something works. I'm trying to be a bit more restrained tonight. But you can see it was a very simple way of installing, much easier than worrying about USB drivers, etc. So that's one of the big takeouts. So that's how you can install an Android app from Visual Studio of all things. So what I was actually doing was I was in the background using what's called the ADB interface. And ADB stands for Android Debugger Bridge, which allows you to both transfer files to your device and execute stuff on the kernel, such as installing, replacing, and a few other things. I don't tend to use much more than just installing, but that was all in the background. But And usually when you're doing ADB work, you're using the USB interface. You don't have to. You can actually do it over the Wi-Fi interface, and that's quite useful. The use case that is often I've found with, I was helping a few people with at the Xamarin, previous Xamarin Hack Day, was you'd be running you're very cool, you're a .NET guy, you've got a Mac laptop because you're cool, it's nice and shiny, and you're running, on your Windows partition you're running your Xamarin and your Visual Studio, but you have to run your emulator in your native partition because of the hardware virtualization requirement. So how do you actually get the information across? And what you do is you can use the virtual network and run the ADB interface over a virtual wireless interface. And that's a demo I'm going to show next. This is the real challenge. So the first thing you'll notice on this device is I have that little green thing at the top. That's actually an application called ADB over wireless. It's called ADB Wireless Pro. I paid $1 for it because it's really cool. And that can run on emulators and on your normal devices too. So what that means is I can have a device, virtual or real, over here, and I can transmit both the APK binary file and also do my debugging through the wireless port. Again, no need for USB. And I find that extremely exciting. Maybe I need to get it out more, but I found that quite good. So you can see I have wireless running on that IP address. So in this particular scenario, I'm going to transfer from my Linux account, my Linux partition, which is running Android Studio, my application which I've just received. So whilst I said in the start I didn't have access to the source code, we'll pretend I have. And you can see there's the actual production endpoint I'm using for the game. I'll just compile it. And if you ever wonder why .NET's so successful, I think a lot of people say half it's because how good Visual Studio is. And once you've played with Android Studio and Eclipse under Linux, you just love Visual Studio. It's just you've been spoilt rotten and you don't realize it till it happens. So I'll just compile that there. And because it's running Android Studio, you'll see it's doing lots of interesting things with Gradle and a few of the other Java apps. I've compiled that, and I just realized I've probably forgotten to connect it. So let's compile, that's good. So what I can do from the command line is I can do an ADB command to connect to an IP address. And I have a terminal here, once I bring it up. And I'll just resize this. And the command is very simple, ADB connect. I'm just going to make sure I get the right IP address because I was in a rush here from work and 136, and I raced out with everything except for my wireless dongle, which had all my configured IP addresses. So that's caused me a slight delay in doing things. So it's .136. So what I say, .1.136. So I go back to my Linux partition, and I just put there .1.136, and hopefully it should connect. And it's connected. So I should see in the Android partition, oh my God, it worked. It worked first go. And what you'll see there is you can see there's a Genymotion Google Nexus 5 phone running 4.42. That's not actually the right one. I'll just bring the other one down. You can see it has the old one there, but there's the new one. And it's connected. So I can now push this application out to it. No USB, very simple. So I'll just press play again. And this will go a little bit Burko and do its build. It's asking which one I want to use, and I'm going to use the version one with Lollipop, which is 5. So if I bring, it should come across very shortly, and I should see my game start soon. So I'll just go back. There it is. The game started. I just had passion fingers there, and I've taken it to the side. So, and see Craig Android Bootcamp. That's the application. So I'll just do a brief talk about the application, and I'll show you how we can interface both the GPS and the camera to it. So I just type in my name, and the idea of this one, this is a training app we did at ThoughtWorks for part of the training course. And the idea was you're a tourist going through Sydney, and a good way of learning about the city is trying to find your way around various landmarks. So there's all these landmarks here, and there's a REST call being made to grab these images. You click on an image, and you take a photograph, and it then calculates. So it calculates how far you are away from the target. So currently it thinks I'm 150,000 kilometres away from that target, which is about 3 times the diameter of the Earth. So there's some issues to do with the calculation, but I just want to give you a feel for what we're trying to do here. Yeah, probably. The alternate universe, yes. So you actually go through a wormhole up, back down. So this was written at the training course. This is all written in Ruby in some in the Heroku cloud, and ThoughtWorks is very left wing. They like their Ruby and their open source, and I thought, no, I'd rather use the Microsoft. It's such a nice framework, and I was able to get something up very quickly. So this is where I developed this presentation from. And that's the thing I'm going to do next. Is you'll see some different elements there. So I'm actually using a production, if you will, image, but pointing it to a Visual Studio interface. And that's very, very simple, but we'll come to that a bit later. So what I'll do is I'll just exit out of this app now. I'll get rid of it for now, and I haven't used Lollipop before, so in the past I used to slide them out, but Lollipop you didn't know that. That's something I've learned. Let me get rid of all those. Okay, so first thing is, because I need to know my location, I need to be able to put a location in. And so the Genymotion, and again the same with the Microsoft and the Xamarin, allows me to manually put in a GPS location. So I've now activated that, and what I can do now is I can hopefully, it should come up with a interface to let me change my latitude and longitude. I'm just trying to think where the window's gone. I've got too many windows open. So let me just see if I can find that window again. Oh, there's the map. I'm not nervous. So what I'll do there is it defaults to the Dalvik, which is the name of the virtual machine, somewhere in Finland, or I don't know, somewhere up north. People listen to ABBA and drink lots of vodka. Cognac, actually. They drink cognac in Finland. So what I'll do is I'll say I want to be in Sydney, so I'll just type in Sydney, and the device will then update my GPS coordinates there. And so I'm now in Sydney. And if I was to go to Google Maps and let it update, it should show Sydney. So it initially was it's somewhere in Finland. I didn't hit enter.
It's a long distance between.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm trouble using this. Yeah. I didn't hit enter, so it always helps. Hit enter.
Twin cities or something.
That's better. And so I should. That looks like the right coordinates now. So when it updates, it should go to Sydney. Oh, there we go. And we're now in Sydney. So that's just how you can use the emulator to simulate. Make sure you hit enter. It always helps. So I'll just close that. And the second thing we needed for that game was we needed to have a camera to take a photograph to say, oh, I'm in this location, and it gives you an idea how far you are away. So this one's a bit more problematic. So I'll switch the camera on.
You're aware of Google image search?
No, I'm not. Yeah, it's probably, this game's a training game, so.
I'm not trying to stop you.
Oh no, just saying, I suspect if I find Google image search, I'll be using it for some nefarious purposes. So I must look that up, actually.
As long as you don't have a gun.
Yeah. No, we're thinking different images, I think. Okay, so I'll put switch the camera on. So I'll tell it I want the front camera to use the webcam. And I should be able to do a preview and just make sure it works. Yep, that's working. So what this means now is if I run a camera, it should then bridge through to the camera on the laptop. So let me just close that dialog there. And if I now bring up a camera application, and let's find where the camera is on. Where is the camera? There's this camera on Lollipop. I keep changing. It's almost as bad as Windows. As you can see, I've pressed the camera app, and I can now take a photograph of myself. There you go. So I'm able then to use the camera. And that didn't work in Canberra, so actually something's worked here which didn't work in Canberra, so that's good. So I've now got a camera. I've now got some GPS. Let me just get rid of that so it doesn't clash. I'll now restart that app, and we'll just run through it again and show you it's sort of working. And then I'll talk about pointing it to the Visual Studio, how easy it is using the fantastic Telerik Fiddler proxy. John, you rock. So it is a good product too. It's also got another little extra. It's got another nice feature which I'll also talk about in a little bit later. So let's just bring up that application again, and it should be Craig Android. There it is, Craig Android Bootcamp. It'll start. Put my name, Craig. It'll do the RESTful call, which is a lot faster this time. I think I'm near. What's it? That one, near Macquarie Street. And the camera comes up, and I can take a photograph. There's a cool photograph. And yeah, I'm still 150,000 kilometres from home, so I need to do some work on this calculation of the Google API I'm using. I'm not using it properly. But anyway, you can see how it's worked there. So that's just another nice thing about the emulators. You can simulate or emulate more correctly various peripherals. So let me just get rid of that now. And what I'll do now is I'm going to say, I'll just start saying I want to do my testing on mine. So I haven't used Lollipop much, so let me just try to get rid of that. I'm sorry?
The dog and the hog at Sydney
His
Hospital.
hospital. Okay, I knew the hog was Macquarie Street. I didn't know that the.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a what do you call it, fountain.
Oh, okay.
I think with the dog and
Yes, I'm half. So the distance between me and the Sydney Hospital is about halfway to Mars at the moment, according to this application. Okay, so I've got this application, and I want to be able to talk or redirect that information to my Visual Studio RESTful service. And one way of doing it is having a DNS running in a different virtual machine and pointing the emulator to that DNS, and the DNS resolves back to my local machine, which is the way I would normally do it. But what I found was that Fiddler's got some nice features as far as DNS redirect. I don't know. I just found that one out. I don't suppose any of you have already used it, but it's there. So what I'll do is I'll fire up Fiddler, the great Telerik product Fiddler. And one of the really nice things in Fiddler is it has this option of hosts, which allows it to override the network DNS, and you can put, if you will, you have a little virtual host file there, and so it's very simple to do rather than trying to have a DNS server on another virtual machine, which I have here using Bind, which can be quite problematic. So that's how I originally was doing the course. When I found this is so much easier. So I can just type in here that that's the URL for my production REST service. And I know my host now is at 1.192.168.1.130. And hopefully that will then push all my REST calls to my local implementation. And see, it's very simple. It's an extremely simple thing to do. So I'll save that. I'll just bring up my other Visual Studio. Now, I've been very naughty here. I've been using IINet. Sorry, not IINet. I've been using IIS Express to do this work. And so what I've done in IIS Express is I've edited the application host file to bind to my URLs address. And one of the nasty, funny things about that is, of course, when you use IIS Express with a well-known port, it requires you to be in administrator mode when you run Visual Studio. So I think I've done that. So if it doesn't work, that's my first line of call. So I'll just fire this one up. And up she comes. And what I think is actually a bug, but I'm not quite sure, but what's happened is that Fiddler has grabbed all the DNS traffic on this host. So even though I've got a public URL there, it's pointing to my ASP.NET application on the device. So that just shows to me that the DNS redirect's working. Much simpler than trying to do it with bind. So I think that's a good takeout from this wonderful demo. So what should happen now is we should have some different photographs. I was going to try to get one about Adam Kogan. I couldn't find one the right size to put on. So let me just try to. The trouble is now that I've got a frozen taskbar and I can't get to the bottom. That's life. There we go. Let's change the size a bit. Okay, so go back to my Android app. Still the same app. Let's type in name. Now, it's fail. I failed. You know why? What I haven't done is I haven't pointed this device to the proxy. And again, this is the same thing you do on a real device. You put me off, Andrew. It's all your fault, mate. It's always your fault. So what I do here is I just go to the settings. And let me just get the settings. I'm sorry?
You do a drag down of
Yeah.
this whole drop down.
Yeah, okay, no, it looks like I've hit too many I've hit too many mouse hits, and I've killed that one. So I'll bring another one up because I want to have some more fun. No, it looks everything's sick today. The joys of live demos, so I'll just kill that one. Oh, no, probably would have started. Anyway, I'll start another one up. And up she comes, hopefully. Oh my God, it came up. It's going to start. And you can see it's quite quick to start. This was an old one I've done, so I'm using a new version of Genymotion. You can see how quickly it started up then. If you've ever used the native emulator, it can take up to 5 minutes. So that's a trap for young players. So what I should have done before, and what I'll do now, is I'll go to settings. And for the wireless, let's go into the wireless. I'll switch it on again. And if you hold it down hard, you can modify the network. And there's a very simple thing. You can just set the proxy. And this proxy is going to be 1.130, which is the address of this laptop. I save that, and that's all I need to do. And it's very easy to go in and out, very simple. Again, you can do all this with a normal phone. And another thing too is you can do this proxying with your cellular traffic as well. So if you have an application where you, one of the applications I've seen where you use a phone as a power meter, a meter reader, you can use the proxy to a laptop with a wireless bridge to capture traffic in the field, which comes in very handy. So I'll just save that. And we'll just run that now. And run Craig Bootcamp. And I'll get some different pictures now. And you can see there's a bit of activity on the... I just picked up some random pictures from Iron Man and some Amazon. I'm going to press someone from Amazon. You can see I've connected into Visual Studio. You can see some stuff coming from the debug. And it's very simple. So it's very simple to use an emulator to do a bit of, be able to debug and simulate an Android device and point the device to various locations, all within a single laptop. In the old days, in my previous life at Telstra, it might take you several days and go through a cab to get configuration changes done in your environment. But with virtual machines, I can do it all on my laptop. So that's the first part of the talk. The second one I wanted us to show was you've seen the RESTful interface and moving around, how easy it is, and you've also seen that I can interface to. I can interface to various, oops, I pressed something. I can interface to GPS, I can interface to camera. I can also interface to USB devices as well. What time do we finish at? Am I over time or under time? On time, okay. Well, I'll just do a quick demo of using one of these devices as a heart rate monitor by interfacing to the OTG port, the on-the-go port. So what I'll do is I'll just start this Nexus 7 running, because that's an emulation of a tablet, and I use a tablet for this particular application. And what I'll do is I'll get out some wireless sensors. So when you have a big Oakley bag, things tend to get lost. So it took me a few seconds. So what I wanted to show here was a thing called the ANT protocol. It was the forerunner to low power Bluetooth. So if any of you have a Garmin heart rate monitor or a Garmin bike computer or the Garmin running watch, that communicates using this protocol called ANT to upload your stuff to the cloud or to communicate between a bicycle speedometer, speed sensor or power sensor back to your watch. So it uses this ANT protocol. So it's one of the ANT devices, ANT dongles. So let's file it really quickly. So I'll just put all this stuff in. I'll just plug this device in. Pick the right USB port. And I should see that now in this USB application. And it worked first go. How wonderful. Now the question is, why did it pick up that particular device? And this is a lovely feature of all virtualization software. And one thing is when you're using emulators, if you have appreciation for the virtualization software in the back, you can get a lot of extra functionality out of it. And in the case of VirtualBox, you have a thing called a USB filter. So I go on USB, and you have various filters. That's the wrong virtual machine. It'd be that one there, which is running. And if I click on settings, there's a thing called USB, and there's these USB filters. So you can see there's a number of devices there. And you can see this ANT USB-M, if you can read that, the stick. If I click on that and edit it, which should be that one there, what you can do is you can place into this dialog a number of attributes of the device, its vendor ID or its product number, and even its serial number if you so desire. So you can have specific dongles or specific USB devices attaching to specific virtual machine emulators. So I can have a number of devices, each going to a different sensor, which I think is quite cool. So I now have an emulator attached to a receiver, an ANT receiver. Now I need to get a heart rate monitor to give some information to it. And since no one here is a cyclist with a Garmin monitor, I have another device, another ANT dongle. I'm going to attach that to another virtual machine which will simulate a heart rate, and we're going to have a little personal area network on this using the ANT device as a heart rate monitor. And what that will show you is that you can do a hell of a lot with these emulators. So I'll just go back to my VMware, and I forgot to start it. Something else is going to take forever. Anyway, so by the time this virtual machine kicks off, we'll be about 5 kilometres closer to Indonesia, because the Continental is probably faster than a virtual machine firing up. Once that fires up, this is a Windows 7 machine. I'm running some simulator software. So again, I've got a simulator on here. I've got a virtual IP network, and I'll have a virtual personal area network, all on the one device. So I think the take out of this talk. It's just how much you can do on the one device. As a developer, you can have a full test environment and integrate. And have a number of devices as well, rather than having to just rely on the one phone that's hanging around the office. So bring that up she comes. And now I don't want to get the new tools. Not in the middle of the demo anyway. And up she comes. So this software here is a simulation software. So I'll plug this other device in. And because this other device is not being mapped to the virtual box, it should connect immediately, if not sooner. So let's wait for that to connect. Oh, it worked. It didn't break. So if I go to removable devices, okay, you'll see that in the removable devices, that the VirtualBox has grabbed one of the bridges, or one of the transmitters, so we can't touch that, but we can get the other one. So that's an example of being able to target specific physical devices with a virtual device. So I've got that attached now. I should connect, and hopefully it'll. Oh my God, it worked first go again. So I'll select the simulator. I'll make it a heart rate monitor. I'll plug in a number. What's the number? Give me a number, Andrew.
86.
86. You can say 42. That's all right. 86 is good. So I'll just make that a sweeping heart rate. So it'll go up and down. I'll make that transmit. So I've now got a heart rate coming out of this Windows virtual machine, and I come across back to my Android virtual machine, and I have this application I was doing for a client for a bike shop, where we could grab this information. So I'll click a heart rate monitor. It'll go searching, and it's found a device ID 86. So that's its, if you like, its MAC address in a way. It's a device number. So I'll grab that. And we'll call it Andrew, because Andrew gave me the number. So Andrew there. And now we're tracking Andrew, and you can see he's got a heart rate. So what I've got here is I've got a personal area network just here with two virtual machines on either end. So I think that's really cool, because I don't think a lot of people realise that you can do this sort of stuff with a virtual machine. So just to prove that it's real, I'll just pull out the receiver. And you're dead, Andrew. It stops. So you can see that's real traffic. So I hope you found something interesting from that, and thank you very much for coming out so close to Christmas.
Did you get all that? We'll take the SSW TV quiz and test your knowledge now.